Hello everyone and welcome to week 4 of the GBA D-League Season 4. Your New York Empoleon are sitting at 1-2 right now, getting back towards 500. The goal is to get there this week. Comes with a win against Deebs and the Calgary Flame Wheels. They are currently sitting at 2-1, I believe, so we need a win this week. We can push ourselves back towards 500, back towards that playoff spot. It's going to be hype if we can get ourselves there, but hopefully you guys enjoy. If you guys do want to watch the team builder, absolutely go down to the description below and check out that video. If you want to see Deebs and his side, also check out the description below, and his channel will always be there. So I encourage you guys to go check out Deebs. He's a really fun battler, really fun content creator, great guy. So anyway, what we're expecting him to bring: Superior, Nihiligo, Charizard, Mega Charizard X specifically, Metagross, Landorus Therian form, and Tapu Fini. On my side, to counter that, we have Bisharp, Milotic, Tornadus Eye, Ditto, Victini, and Mega Venusaur. If you don't know those sets, I encourage you to go check out that team builder because those sets are really, really hype this week. We're bringing some new stuff I haven't brought to the GBA D-League just yet, and I think that it's going to go really, really well. At least I sure hope so. Anyway, I'm not going to waste any more of your time. I will see you guys back here with that battle in a second. Alright everyone, welcome back. We're going to jump right into this. We're not going to waste any more of your time. Let's see which 6 Pokemon Deebs is bringing, and let's get ourselves into this battle right here. So Superior, Landorus Therian form, Charizard, Porygon 2, Hitmonlee, and Golisopod. So some stuff that I was not necessarily expecting to see, which is pretty much fine by me. So Porygon 2 is going to come out here. No Fini right now either, which I'm not complaining about. That thing's super annoying. So Golisopod's going to come in, and we don't see the Rotom, which is something I was really worried about, so I'm okay with that as well. Instead, we see the Hitmonlee. So a lot of physical threats. Milotic puts in a ton of work here, so I do have to make sure that I keep it healthy and keep it out of the way of the line of fire of the Superior specifically. Other than that, though, I think we've got Mega Venusaur to handle that Superior just fine, and the rest of the team should be good to go. Now, he does have both of his possible Z users, so I do have to watch out for that. Otherwise, Milotic is a pretty decent lead against most of his team. He can't set up his Stealth Rocks with Landorus safely if I do lead with my Milotic. I could lead with Tornadus as well, which handles just about any lead except for the Mega Charizard. But I think Milotic is a pretty safe lead here. If he does decide to lead Superior, we just go out into my Venusaur and don't worry too much about it. Good luck to Deebs, and let the battle begin. Hopefully there's no hacks this battle. In a lot of my mocks, I mean, it's just Showdown, that's what it is, but just this battle was super hacksy. I don't know why. For no reason, this battle, more than any other battle I've ever done, was just super hacksy. So hoping for no hacks, but here we go. Milotic is going to drop onto the field. Ninian is going to lead for us as he leads with Omega the Charizard. Now, I know that Deebs likes to run some funky sets. He could run Sub here. I really don't see that being an issue. He can't obviously have Z Solar Beam or anything like that, so in the meantime, I'm just going to click Toxic. He does not have his Metagross, which makes nothing immune to Toxic on his team, and Milotic can just freely get that Toxic up if he does go out in Superior here, which is a pretty decent switch-in. I would love to get a Toxic on that thing. Sub Superior has been a problem for me with this matchup, just because it's annoying to break into. But otherwise, this Milotic seems to be able to handle anything that isn't named Superior as on a switch-in here. With this Toxic, it's going to get some damage on something, and that'll really help. That'll really help the duration of this battle. You'll see what this Milotic set is if you haven't watched the Team Builder. I mean, obviously, I can spoil it now. Deebs can't hear me. It is a Flame Orb Milotic. First time I'm running that this season with a ton of defense. It is designed to counter Charizard, Landorus, Golisopod, Metagross if he brought it, Hitmonlee, so nothing really wants to touch it, or nothing really can touch it once it gets that Flame Orb up. Now, I don't have the ability to get it up first turn, obviously I don't have Protect or anything, but he's going to go straight for a Dragon Claw, so let's take a look at how much damage this is going to do. It's going to do about 60. We do land the Toxic, so we do see the Dragon Claw. We do know that he is obviously Mega X right now, and he is going to be Tough Claws. So we get to see how much damage. It brings me down to 129. So Milotic from a Charizard X before I got my Flame Orb up brings me down to 129, which is pretty good. I can pretty freely now just go for Recover. I could also go for a Toxic again, predicting him to switch out, knowing how little that damage was on my Milotic. But Recover is safe, free. He can go for something here like another Dragon Claw. There no longer is a potential for him to really substitute on me because of the fact that he's now Toxic. He could go into Superior here, but I'm okay going back to full health on the Superior switch and then going out into my Mega Venusaur instead of getting a Toxic off on that. That's totally fine by me. So not gonna stress too much about this play. He is gonna switch out. We did expect that. Goes out into Narth, which is the Superior. So I could have gone for the Toxic there, but I'm actually not going to stress too much about that particular play. That would have been an amazing play for me right here, but even an HP Flying from a +2 Superior isn't going to do very much to Mega Venusaur. The real threat here is him doubling out into maybe the Golisopod or the Landorus, depending on which one has that Z move, which is something that Mega Venusaur does not want to see right now. Now, obviously, either of those two things, I just go back into my now very healthy and Flame Orb up Milotic, and that way I can just bring that thing back in on a Z-Fly, I can bring that thing in on a First Impression, and it's going to eat up those hits just fine and be able to recover back up later. So, Milotic is ready, it is set. That's why I wanted to recover there, because I'm playing the long game right now. This Milotic does not like to play fast. It is not going to race you to the finish. It is going to outlast you. And that is the whole objective here, is that this thing just sits in on you and is able to handle whatever you put up against it. So Mega Venusaur is going to come out here. He's going to go straight for the knockoff. That is totally fine by me. Now Victini obviously could have been a switch in, but I thought he might have knockoff on this thing. And at this point he's not sub. That means I can go straight for a knockoff of my own. He hasn't subbed yet. Knockoff should break a sub if he's not defensively invested, but since he doesn't have the Metagross, I can also go straight for a Sludge Bomb here and hit something really hard. But I'm going to go for the knockoff. If he goes out to the Lando and it is a Z Lando, and he gets, the Intimidate, obviously this knockoff's going to do very, very little damage. But otherwise, I'd get to know if it's a Z Lando, which is huge information for me to have. If he stays in with his Superior, I knock off whatever item this thing has, which could be anything at this point. Porygon 2 comes in, that's Eviolite gone. Hitmonlee comes in, he can't get the Unburden boost, so I'm totally okay getting the information from this knockoff on this Mega Venusaur right now. Let's see what he's going to go for here. Glare, I outspeed, so he might be going for a Dragon Tail here. We are going to knock off his Assault Vest, Mirror Coat, so, wow. Now we're cooking here. Oh boy. So he was trying to tech me with that Mirror Coat and take out my Mega Venusaur with a huge Sludge Bomb, but at this point, now Sludge Bomb should take this thing out even after, even if he's pretty bulky. Let me just take a look at like max bulk. Maybe not if it's like max defensive. And I definitely don't want to lose my Mega Venusaur to the Superior. That would be the one thing it's designed specifically to counter. Now I could go for another knockoff just in case, because he can't really touch me, and he's probably going to switch out knowing that I know that he has that Mirror Coat now. So he has no Assault Vest anymore. We've knocked that off. I marked it down as having holding it, but he is not holding it anymore. So that is great information to have. He definitely was expecting me to just go straight for the Sludge Bomb there, but knockoff made so much more sense on this Venusaur this week. And I'm going to go for another one here, specifically because another knockoff should bring him down to the point where even at like max bulk, a Sludge Bomb should do a ton of damage, probably take it out, and it puts him in a really tight position where, do you Mirror Coat a third time, knowing that I've knockoffed twice now, but I think he's probably going to switch out here. Now I could have Leech Seeded predicting that, but I didn't think, I definitely wanted to get something off regardless. So Omega comes out, that's the Charizard. We obviously can't stay on the Charizard. Milotic can definitely come in on the Charizard though, and so we're going to get a little baby knockoff here, and get some damage off with the poison, and Milotic comes right back in. Now if he goes right back into his Superior, you know what we do, we just go right back into my Venusaur. These two Pokemon pair so well together. Everyone said in the beginning that this was a Gen 6 core, and they're right, it was a Gen 6 core, and I don't see why it doesn't work in Gen 7 too. It's not like they introduced anything that makes Milotic Mega Venusaur a bad pairing. And so here we go, Charizard getting worn down slightly. He does get the Mega off early in the game, which means that if I do get my rocks up with Bisharp later, I'm not going to be able to take advantage of its quad weakness, but that doesn't mean it's not still weak. Though the rocks aren't huge, Golisopod doesn't appreciate the rocks at all. That emergency exit could obviously come into play if the rocks are up on the field, so I would love to get them up at some point. The only thing that can set them up on his side of the field would be that Landorus T, which Ditto can definitely scout to see what it's got. And if he does want to be, if he is Z Lando or something like that, and I do think he might, if Milotic's not quite healthy enough, Ditto can come in and intimidate. So hopefully we have the answers we need. Obviously this is just the early game, and I'm thinking about like late mid-game right now plays, because I mean my play is really obvious here. It's just go out into Milotic. And the thing about this team right now is that I can make the obvious play and still feel pretty good about it. Because it's kind of like, what is this Charizard going to do to my Milotic right here? So he's just going to straight roost to kind of scout what I'm going to do, or just, you know, get his health back and stay healthy, which is totally fine. I can pretty freely Toxic again here if he does go out into Superior. If he does go for a Dragon Dance on this turn, then I can just go for a Haze next turn. So I'm going to Toxic, predicting him to switch that thing back out, not take more Toxic damage on a Dragon Dance or something. That's still not going to be that useful against my Milotic. And if he does go out into the Superior again, and we do get a Toxic on that thing, wearing that thing down basically means Milotic will win the game once that thing goes down, because Milotic walls the rest of his team and can just Toxic and recover for the entire game. If I have to do that, I will do that. So he is going to switch out right here. He's going to go right back into Narth, the Superior. So please don't miss this Toxic. Oh my gosh, Milotic. That's a big Toxic right there to get on that Superior. And that allows me to go back into my Mega Venusaur. Again, completely free. Now I even have the added bulk of already being Mega Evolved. And I am so happy that I have not missed my 2 Toxics here this game. Honestly, that is a big relief to have in the back pocket right now. And this actually allows my Mega Venusaur to go for something like a Synthesis, depending on what move he goes for here, or a knockoff again. And he could go right back into his Charizard here, predicting my Mega Venusaur to come in. And if he does, I just go right back into Milotic, and then next turn, instead of clicking Toxic, I just click Recover. The thing is, between this interaction of Mega Venusaur and Mega Charizard, and then Superior Milotic, they all wall each other. And so it's just kind of who wins the war of attrition. And he's Toxic on both, and I have Recovery on both. So he also has Roost on his Charizard, which we did see. He could have Synthesis on this thing, which would be a crazy set. Knockoff Mirror Coat Synthesis would be a wild set to see on a Superior, but it would probably confirm that he's super bulky. Even with that Assault Vest, I would assume that he'd be putting some bulk into it. But we just, again, don't attack it, just knock off slowly and chip away. We don't have to Sludge Bomb it, and the thing is, next turn, if I do decide to go for a Sludge Bomb and he does go into his Mega Charizard next turn, then that's 40%. So he's going to Hard Switch right out into Haunch. What is Haunch? Haunch is the Hitmonlee. What is Hitmonlee going to do to a Mega Venusaur is really the question. Like, what coverage do you get? Do you get Aerial Ace or something? Let's just say I assume you do get Aerial Ace. That's not going to do very much, honestly. I kind of want to click Knockoff. He probably just normal gem Fake Outs here. And then gets his Unburden up, and then he's really fast. Do I care? It's like do I even care? Let's see, Leech Seed, the value of Leech Seed here would be if he does decide to switch out, then I get a Leech Seed up. The problem with Leech Seed is that revealing that I have it is not ideal yet. Now I could just go straight for a knockoff here. If he just goes for a Fake Out, that's fine. If he does go for an Aerial Ace, I mean that does 30 to 35%, so I mean we eat that as well. Even if he's Choice Banded, it's only going to do, you know, 50%. And then it doesn't do it again the next time, so then we're able to get that Synthesis boost back up. But I think Leech Seed does make sense because it will be able to take any hit from this thing. So if he goes for the Double Edge, and again, that does about 50%. He gets recoil damage here. He's Life Orb, we see. We go for the Leech Seed, and we land it. And now we saw how much that did. We were at 166. We went down to 87, and now we're back up to 103. So we do take another one. I can go for a Synthesis here, if I so choose to do so. If he does decide to go for another Life Orb boosted Double Edge, he's going to be taking a ton of recoil. He's going to be taking a ton of damage, so especially with that Leech Seed coming up afterwards. So we are just going to click Synthesis here. If he does decide to switch out, fine. We're back to full health, and he is down about 40%. And if he does decide to go for another double edge, we take it, and then we synthesis back up and get some Leech Seed recovery, and he's down Life Orb recoil, plus recoil from the double edge, plus Leech Seed, which obviously was his strongest move against the Mega Venusaur. So he's not normal gem boosted, he's not even unburdened, so he's clearly reckless, which is really interesting. So there's another double edge, which we do take from this range, so that's great. So yeah, we eat that. Down goes the recoil, down goes the HP, synthesis comes in, and we are sitting pretty with the Mega Venusaur sitting against this Hitmonlee. Now I just get to click synthesis again at this point after another set of Leech Seed as well. Chipping away at this Hitmonlee right here. Now I can just click synthesis again. There is literally nothing stopping me from doing so. The only thing stopping me from doing so would be obviously going for a Sludge Bomb in order to predict a switch of something like the Golisopod coming in here. But I don't see him preserving this Hitmonlee. It doesn't really do anything against my team at this point. So let's just go for that synthesis here. Knowing that it's not, what do you call it? Unburden and speed boosting. So he dies to recoil damage. So Hitmonlee dies to double edge recoil. So that's fine, and we get a synthesis back up, and we are sitting healthy once again. So Mega Venusaur doing what Mega Venusaur is supposed to be doing in this matchup, which is walling a couple of things. Superior being the big one that I need to make sure goes down before this Mega Venusaur does. So if he goes under Charizard, Milotic. Landorus, Milotic. Golisopod, Milotic. Porygon 2, knockoff. And Superior, stay in and see what he's going to do. That's the one question mark, is kind of what set is he running? Is he so defensive? Will a Mirror Coat take out my Mega Venusaur? That would be a big question mark of mine that I'm not 100% sure about. And so Hitmonlee's down, which is a really, really good thing, because that thing does hit hard. I could have had the Stone Edge for my Tornadus, and if he was unburdened, he'd outspeed, but he wasn't unburdened. He was reckless, which is really interesting. So Fry's Lando comes out, and that is the Landorus Therian form. So Intimidate, obviously, is the ability. And I should mark down that he was reckless on that. And Superior is probably contrary, but we don't actually have confirmation on that. So at this point, excuse me, I have Ditto as one option. I have my Milotic as another. And because he could go for a knockoff here, Milotic is the play. Now Milotic has its Flame Orb up, and it is facing down a Landorus Therian. And let's say he's hyper-offensive Landorus Therian. Earthquake's doing 30%. Let's say he's Choice Banded instead of Choice Scarfed, just to say he's doing maximum damage. Earthquake's doing 50%. Not even, like lower edge of 50%. So we're going to get a really good information here. He goes straight for an SD here. So Swords Dance Lando coming out, so he's definitely not going to be banded in any way, that's for sure, because that would be really weird. But he is +2, and we'll take a look at like Z-Fly here, because that is what I would expect him to be running right now. Z-Fly will take out my Milotic from this range. Now, do I want my Milotic going down right now? It doesn't die to anything besides a Z-Fly, and I definitely don't want my Milotic going down. I kind of want him to burn that Z-Fly on something else, and my Milotic be able to come back in and take some hits from this thing. Now, he's not Scarfed, which is great to know, because that means that things like my Tornadus will outspeed. Ditto would outspeed it as well, and it could block an Earthquake and get him back down to just 1, or +1. What value does Bisharp hold for me for the rest of this game? It has the Sucker Punch, but that's a pretty decent switch in for me to go into right here. Just to eat something. I could go into my Ditto as well. Don't expect him to go for a knockoff at this point. And Ditto does handle maybe the Mega Charizard late game, as it can turn into that, but I'm not so concerned about it. And getting him down to just +1 would be great. So I am going to go into the Ditto here, and if he does go for an Earthquake, then that's perfect. If he goes for another Swords Dance, then that's annoying, but a +2 Ditto is going to be sitting against him. If he Z-Flies, or I guess, is it +2 Ditto? Yeah, it's a +2 Ditto, and then it makes him +1. That's interesting. So I'm actually going to be stronger Ditto than he is a Landorus. So we are going to take a look at what his set is after this turn, unless he Z-flies and takes me out at +1, which would sort of surprise me. And so here is the Z move. Z what? Groundium Z? Is that Groundium Z? Did I read that right? Did I see that right? And yes, it is Groundium Z, and it is burned. So he has Earthquake. And he's at +1 now instead of +2. Stone Edge and Stealth Rock. He's probably going to set up his rocks here. I could do the same. And then switch out, or I could just go for a +2 Stone Edge here. He doesn't even have a flying type move. So Venusaur is honestly pretty safe at this point. I'm just going to click Stone Edge. It's a +2 Stone Edge. He's going to switch out. What are you going into on this +2 Stone Edge? OP02. So he does not have the knockoff. That would have been the play, obviously. Traces my Intimidate. Wow, the amount of intimidation right now is kind of wild. But we are going to click Stone Edge at +1. We are going to connect the Stone Edge at +1. And that's going to do 50% on a crit to this Porygon 2. Now, he's probably going to recover here. There's no reason for me to let my Ditto take any damage it doesn't need to take right now. So, Ditto not going to be putting in, not going to be staying in on this thing for sure. Now, I can just go out into my Bisharp here, which can then knock off the following turn. I don't believe that this Porygon 2 can take out my Bisharp in one hit. I'm expecting a straight recover here, just because he knows that if I just stay in Stone Edge, I will win this fight. And I could just go for another one and go for a crit, but at 80% accurate and a 4% crit chance, or whatever it is, 10% crit chance, that's not worth the risk of him recovering and me missing and ending up in a much worse situation where I don't get a free switch into Bisharp. This free switch into Bisharp right here means knockoff. It means a free knockoff, and that's what we're about this game, is just getting rid of his items. We are currently wearing his team down piece by piece. He is preserving that Superior very carefully, but I think we are in great shape. His Superior is toxic, his Charizard is toxic, his Hitmonlee's down, Porygon 2 is down to 50%, but it can recover back up. His Golisopod has not seen the field yet, but that's totally fine, and Landorus T has burned its Z move, so we are in pretty decent shape, and I do actually, why don't I just write down that he has Stone Edge and Stealth Rock? Because I do have information. So there's the recover as expected, so nothing crazy about that play. And that's a free switch into Bisharp. It's a free knockoff right now, or it's free rocks for me. Hitmonlee was probably his spinner. Now Zard or Superior could theoretically have Rapid Spin on them, but I don't really think the rocks are that necessary at this moment. I would rather knockoff if he does decide to stay in and maybe go for a Thunder Wave. Can't Toxic me, but Thunder Wave or breaking my Air Balloon that he just saw, because he does know that his Landorus T now cannot touch me. I know he doesn't have superpower, so without breaking that Air Balloon, this thing hard walls that Landorus T for a turn, which is amazing. And can put up its rocks later. So he's probably going to try to break the Air Balloon, but if he does do that, then he's going to lose his Eviolite here, and that's the trade-off he's going to make if he does decide that he wants to make my Bisharp vulnerable to his Landorus T, because Landorus T obviously can't hard switch in on a Bisharp at all right now. Give me that +1 from Defiant, gladly, and my Air Balloon will still be up. So he's never going to do that. Zard could come in, Superior could come in, so yeah, he's definitely not going to stay in. Golisopod could come in here, Omega the Charizard's going to come out, and we are not going to set up our rocks yet, but that's totally fine. We're going to get a big knockoff off on this Charizard. And that does, you know, he's pretty bulky Zard right there, so that's fine. It's good information. He could Roost again. We go out straight away into my Milotic, I think, and then we just go for Recover next turn and get it back to full health. Because even if he just goes for, even if he goes for a Dragon Dance here, we just Recover next turn anyway, get back to, you know, see how much damage he does, get back to a decent amount of health, and then Haze the following turn as the poison continues to rack up on this Charizard. Now Bisharp, because it still has its Air Balloon intact, Landorus T is not a threat to it at all. I can't just necessarily hard switch into the Landorus T, just because if he does go for the Stone Edge and then he gets the Earthquake off the following turn. But he obviously can't switch his Landorus T in. He doesn't have superpower for it. He doesn't even have Z-Fly for anything. So we're in decent shape right there. So we are just going to go straight into my Milotic here. It's predictable. He might go out in Superior, but again, if he goes in Superior, we go into Mega Venusaur. We have the checks right now. So this also Swords Dances. So he is just setting up all over the place right now. So now what are we looking at? A +2 Charizard with Dragon Claw. Does 50% to 60%, which means that we do survive. I can just click recover at this point, because that's if he's like Jolly max attack, and recover would allow me to take. It does theoretically just over 50%. So I can haze here instead, which would cost me on my Milotic, which isn't a big deal. I mean, it is a big deal, but it is doable to lose my Milotic right here. The other thing I could go into here would be Tornadus, but I don't think that's a good play because we know that his Landorus isn't Scarfed, and so it outspeeds that. Outspeeds everything besides the Superior, and since Zard isn't Dragon Dance, it's Swords Dance instead. Milotic. So I could just haze, or I could just recover and then get a +2 Ditto as a Charizard. And click Scald here. But he could Roost. He could definitely Roost, expecting me to recover. And if he does that, I'm just going to click Haze. So he goes straight for the D-Claw. That's fine. We are going to take some damage from that. We're going to go for the Haze here. And that's going to bring him down to where, you know, his neutral hit may not even kill my Milotic from this range. Although after the burn, it might. But I can also switch out at this point, and potentially survive an attack later from Porygon 2, or outspeed it and get a recover back up. Since the poison is going to take him down even further. Now, if I'm really expecting him to just go for a Dragon Claw or a Flare Blitz here and not have Earthquake, I could go out into Victini, although it would take a decent chunk of damage, and there's really not a lot of benefit to that. I could go into Tornadus, which can definitely take a neutral hit from this Charizard, knowing how little that did to my Milotic. He's clearly not max attack. At +2, he brought me down to 54 from 100, and so he did a little under 100, which means he's definitely not even close to max attack. He's got some real bulk investment. It's probably unreasonable to expect me to survive this attack, but I'm going to go out into Victini here, right? Or do I not do that? Or do I just let my Milotic go down at this point, because it is a little bit lower than I wanted it to be. I'm going to recover. He may Roost. He goes straight for the D-Claw. Let's see how much attack investment he has. So he does take my Milotic out, and that's alright. So, whoops, that's too far. Hold on. So Milotic, or Charizard, hold on. Charizard X kills Milotic with Dragon Claw. Now I can just go out into Ditto here, which that's a safe switch, and it gets the kill. I can go out into Tornadus here, which is a safe switch and gets the kill. I can go out into Victini, which gets the kill. I think a lovely Ditto versus Charizard fight, Ditto versus Mega Charizard fight is in order here. What is your last move, friend? It is Fire Punch. So, we do know your full set. I just click Dragon Claw at this point. It is a Mega Charizard. I outspeed your Mega Charizard. You could switch out and go into your Landorus. That is totally an option for you. There's really nothing stopping you from doing it. And then try to recover with this thing later. But, I mean, your Landorus is going to take a Dragon Claw from a Mega Charizard. Like, why not? Why would I be upset about that? It's a free... I mean, I could have gone into my Tornadus here, which would have obviously threatened that Landorus away instead of threatening it into attacking me, and I could have just gone for a knockoff. But I think the Ditto play is fine here. Mega Venusaur still being alive does definitely handle the Superior, which he might go into as well. just because it was there pretty much for my Lodic on this team, and otherwise doesn't. It still has that tech for Venusaur though, so we'll see what happens. He does withdraw, and he goes out into that Serperior. Yeah, so he knows that my Lodic's down, and Serperior's value to him is dwindling. So Dragon Claw's going to come out, and 2 of those would kill. Now, he could be Scarf. He's not Scarf. We know he was Assault Vest, which means that we do outspeed. And so another Dragon Claw will put in the finest of work from this Ditto, and he might switch out. I don't see why at this point you would have switched this thing in to take a massive Dragon Claw and then switch it out. That doesn't really make any sense to me, but I won't mark on my notes anything quite yet. Because after that, he probably just goes into the Landorus, and then we go out into Bisharp, probably, which works for me, because he could go for a Stone Edge if he wants, but if he doesn't go for a Stone Edge and goes for a Swords Dance, then Bisharp's in for free, and he still doesn't really have an answer to it. That gives me a chance to set up my rocks. So yeah, he just lets this thing go down. He knows this thing was here for my Lodic. My Lodic goes down, so he's going to let this go down. So Ditto kills Serperior with Dragon Claw. It's fun to write things about Ditto. It's like, Ditto kills Serperior with Dragon Claw. Ditto doesn't learn Dragon Claw, silly. I love Ditto. Ditto is such an interesting Pokemon in League format. Gives you access to so much information about your opponent's set. Gives you access to incredible, like, most Pokemon don't like facing themselves down, especially themselves at Choice Scarfed as well. You know, Pokemon that are not Scarfed don't like seeing a Pokemon that is Scarfed face them down. Now, with Charizard X and Landorus being his last 2 Defoggers, and me knowing that neither of them has Defog, I can go into Bisharp here, and if he does decide to Stone Edge instead of Earthquake, then yes, I lose my Air Balloon and possibly my Bisharp as well, but nothing else is going to want to switch into this thing right now hard. So I'm just going to switch out my Ditto, preserve that. Bisharp comes in, does have that Air Balloon still intact, so if he does go for a Swords Dance, he just goes for the rocks here. So he wants his rocks up at this point, which is a great play. I want my rocks up because then that Charizard cannot switch back in at all. And since he has to click Stone Edge the first time he attacks me, that is a good chance for me to just get my rocks up as well. Because I do have that Air Balloon, and so I'm just going to set up my own Stealth Rocks at this point. Now, if he does decide to switch out his Landorus into his Charizard, this would be his last opportunity to do that. Then I'm probably going to have to go into something and let it take a huge hit from the Charizard, because I really don't think my Bisharp needs to take any damage yet, considering it still has its Air Balloon intact. And with Golisopod and Charizard still in the back, I think my Stealth Rocks have a lot of value here. Obviously with Victini and Tornadus in the back for me, his Stealth Rocks also have a lot of value, and Defog is my only option this week. I didn't bring my Excadrill. So I do have to watch out for him potentially wearing those Pokemon down with those rocks, but I can play around that. So he goes out into Herapod, the Golisopod, and we do get our Stealth Rocks up at this point. Now we know his Z-move was on his Lando, but there's no reason to stay in right now and pop my Air Balloon on this Golisopod. There's just no justifiable reason for that. Tornadus is an option, but I don't necessarily love that option. Victini's another option, but again, it's not a great option against this thing. Ditto is certainly an option against a Golisopod to see what kind of set he's running and what kind of moves he's got. And I don't think Golisopod does well against another Golisopod. You know, even if he's like max attack or anything. Yeah, he's doing like, I don't know, like 40% to a Ditto, depending on what move he goes for. And the other option would be going out into Venusaur at this point, which he's also doing about 40% to, but I outspeed and can Sludge Bomb. I'm going to go into Ditto here. I just want to see what he's going to do. And preserving my Bisharp at a high amount of HP is really valuable to me. So we are going to go into Ditto. We're going to see what he's running. Let's take a look. First impression, that's not surprising. And that's actually emergency exits for me. which works out because it's a free switch into Venusaur at this point, if I want it to be. That did a lot of damage, though. That might be, like, I don't think he's banded, but it's a free switch into Venusaur, safe switch into Venusaur, Superior's down, Rocks are up, which means Charizard can't just come in. I can go for a Leech Seed here, and that's a pretty decent option, because he's not going to be able to do 60% to me with anything, and if Charizard does come in and to sack it off, that's fine, but if he goes out into, like, Lando, which is definitely a reasonable switch, then Leech Seed is my best play. So we're going to go for a Leech Seed here, and then next turn we'll go for a Synthesis, because we should outspeed this thing, barring him being Choice Scarfed. But again, Choice Scarf First Impression makes no sense to me, so let's take a look at what he's going to go for here. He's going to Taunt, but he's undersped, so that, you know, I can't Synthesis now, but I do have the Leech Seed on him, and that works for me, because it just puts me back to where I was before Stealth Rocks, which is great. And now I can Sludge Bomb 100% freely. If Lando comes in and it gets poisoned by the Sludge Bomb, I'm okay with that. If Gliscod stays in, I believe this Sludge Bomb should do 30%, 30 to 40%. So after the Leech Seed, he'll emergency exit, which would be a really unfortunate time for him to emergency exit, honestly, because he gets a safe switch into something, and my Venusaur will take the damage from the Gliscod, as opposed to him getting an attack off. I suppose him not getting an attack off, excuse me. So we'll see. Hopefully the Sludge Bomb does enough to knock it under 50%. Ironically, if I don't knock it under 50%, I really don't want to do that much damage at all. But he is just going to hard switch, so he'll take 25% next time he comes in. He goes out into Omega, the Charizard, which is fine. We reveal that we have Sludge Bomb, which is fine, and that Charizard goes down. Lando's probably his switch in now, and so Charizard dies to Stealth Rocks. Wow, this is the most passive deaths battle of all time. Charizard X dies to Stealth Rock. And again, Gliscod's going to take 25% if it comes back in. He does get rid of the Leech Seed, and I still have the Taunt on me, but I do have... Venusaur does wall that Gliscod just fine as long as I can come in safely on it. Now, we know that he has Earthquake, and we know that he has Swords Dance here. So, Venusaur versus a Landorus. How much do you take from a +2 Earthquake? A lot, is actually the answer to that question. But, and I still have the Taunt on me, don't I? So it's definitely not worth staying in here. Jafar can definitely come back in. I did make that switch last time, which makes me nervous that he's just going to go straight for a Stone Edge at this point. That also means Ditto could come in on this thing. Victini is definitely something I want to get in safely on this Lando. What do I need Ditto for of the remainder of his Pokemon? Really nothing. It really doesn't do anything for me except come in on this thing and click a couple Stone Edges before he kills me with it. And so we are just going to bring Ditto back in and get that Intimidate. Bring this thing down. He goes straight for a Swords Dance. Unfortunate that's the way that worked out, that he did decide to make that play instead. But I do at least have neutral on myself, and I can click Stone Edge here. And he can click Stone Edge here. And it comes down to who can land Stone Edges more reliably than the other person. I land my second Stone Edge of the game. He goes for a Stone Edge. He misses. Oh my god, the hacks. I am so sorry, Deebs. That is not the time for that. I actually do apologize that is... I'm so sorry. I've landed 2 Stone Edges, so I was like, okay, I've landed 2, he can land 1, but... I mean, Ditto's in here till it dies, and it's clicking Stone Edge till Kingdom Come right now. He could switch out at this point, but that's a ton of damage, and Ditto still being at a reasonable amount of health to switch back in on this Landorus T later if he does switch it out. And something else potentially taking a Stone Edge is not what he wants to see right now. Porygon 2 probably does not have a way of checking Mega Venusaur late game. Bisharp still has its Air Balloon intact, so it can come in on the Porygon 2 and knock it off later as well. Gallistopod's taking Stealth Rock damage, so I don't even know if he really wants to switch out right now. Porygon 2 would be his only switch in here. But I think the play is stay in and expect me to miss my Stone Edge now that I've landed 2 of them. I think that's what I would do if I was in his boots. I am so sorry, Deebs. That is really brutal. He is going to switch out, though. Get rid of his +1. Goes out into his Porygon 2 here, which takes a little bit of Stealth Rock damage. Traces my Intimidate, so now I'm at -1. Last time it came in, I critted him, too. This Stone Edge Ditto has been absolutely putting in the finest of work right now, and gets another tiny baby Stone Edge, but does land it. And there's definitely no reason for me to stay in at this point. So what does Ditto do to my Venusaur? What does Ditto do to my Bisharp? The only thing it does to my Bisharp is get rid of that Air Balloon, which at this point I think is actually really valuable for me to have. Now Tornadus could come in and knock off on the Ditto as well, but I kind of want that thing to be healthy. And he could have Thunderbolt or something. So I'm just going to go onto the Venusaur here, and that'll give me a chance to click Synthesis, because this Porygon 2 does not learn Taunt. And, you know, this is a crazy battle. It's been almost 40 minutes, but, and we're still, like, there's still 8 Pokemon alive on the field here, but it has been a wild one, and, we are not playing the timer. That is not the plan right now. We are trying to play this battle out. I'm trying to make moves as fast as I can, but make the right moves every time. So, there's an Ice Beam. Venusaur should take that just fine. No Freeze. And that means that I can go for a Synthesis here. Now I could go for a knockoff if I wanted to. I don't think that's the play right now. It could be if he goes out into the Gliscod, but even then, I think being at a much healthier amount of HP is definitely the look right now. So Venusaur gonna be able to recover back up all the damage he's put all this time and work into getting it down. And we are going to be able to see what he's going to go for on his next turn. He could go into the Lando here, could go into the Gliscod here. So there's the Gliscod, and actually I'm okay with that. Yeah, First Impression will do some damage on this turn. So one temptation would be clicking Synthesis again to eat the First Impression, bring myself back to full, and then Sludge Bomb the following turn when he can't do it again. I think that is the play here. Just take the damage, recover it back up. So there's First Impression. I don't know what item he has, which is really the risky thing here. So we are just going to Synthesis on that First Impression, and then we're going to go for a Sludge Bomb on the following turn, as he either decides to switch out or stay in and then take a Sludge Bomb and switch out automatically. But that's free damage on this thing for me, and Venusaur is as healthy as I need it to be for the end of this game. So Sludge Bomb is going to come out. There's no justification that this shouldn't do that amount of damage, and it does a ton more. Brings him down to where he cannot switch into rocks again at all, so actually that play ends up being fantastic for me. Porygon 2 could come out here, but it is the Landers that comes out at this point. He is going to get the little bit of Stealth Rock damage. He has the Intimidate coming out at this point, which is not going to matter. This Venusaur is going to click Sludge Bomb once again on this Landorus. He could Swords Dance here. He just goes straight for the Stone Edge, predicting me to go out into the Ditto like I've been doing every time, but we do stay in. We do click Sludge Bomb. It does just a little bit less than full. No poison. That's okay. I'm honestly not going to concern myself with it too much. Now, he could Earthquake at this point just for damage. I kind of think that's probably his play. I think my Venusaur has done more than enough work at this point to justify itself getting a little bit of rest. And so I'm going to go out into my Ditto, which I think makes the most sense here. Venusaur is going to switch out. It's going to be Ditto. If he goes for the Earthquake, he's just going to get... I'm just going to have to click Stone Edge again the following turn. I mean, Ditto's just doing what Ditto's doing right now. If he goes for the Swords Dance, which would be a zany play if he does, that's fine by me. If he does go for the Stone Edge and take me out. So he does go for the Swords Dance here, which is interesting because it means that I have to land a Stone Edge here, which I guess I don't have to land a Stone Edge here. I do have other Pokemon. I land 4 Stone Edges this game, though. And his Gliscod can't switch in again to rocks. So Ditto kills Landorus TNT with Stone Edge. Now the question is, do I just leave my Ditto in at this point? Or do I switch it out? And is there a good reason for me to switch into anything right now? Like, what's going to handle this Porygon 2? Bisharp. Bisharp's going to handle this Porygon 2, and there's no reason for my Ditto not to be able to become a Porygon 2 later. Because he might have Toxic, and that would actually really help me. And I do have enough HP to survive one more switch into Stealth Rocks. So we are going to switch out into my Bisharp here. And he could go for an Ice Beam, that is the predictable play. And that would finally pop my Air Balloon. But Air Balloon pops, no freeze, that's what I wanted to see. And we are able to click Knock Off here to get rid of that Eviolite for later. And the rest of this game should just be Bisharp clicking Knock Off on a Porygon 2 here. Now, there's the Eviolite gone. Foul Play comes out, which is a really cool tech on a Porygon 2, but it doesn't do much to a Bisharp. And with the Eviolite gone, Knock Off again should do the rest of that damage, even though he doesn't have an item. And it doesn't quite... He goes for the Ice Beam, so he doesn't end up getting the KO on my Bisharp. He has no answer to it right now. I'm just going to click Knock Off one more time. There is nothing stopping me from doing that over and over on this Porygon 2. And Bisharp kills Porygon 2 with Knock Off. And out comes the Gliscod, and Gliscod dies to Stealth Rocks. And with that, we are officially the New York Empoleon. Haha! Are back to 500 on the season. We started 0-2, but we have been improving every single game, ready to get into this season. I think the GBA D-League has a brand new challenge to face in the New York Empoleon. I'm so excited to be a part of this league. Thank you so much to Deebs. Great game, dude. I'm so sorry about that Stone Edge miss, but thankfully there wasn't a ton of hacks this battle overall. This was just a very fun match. I will see you guys next week as we take on Greg and the Los Angeles Clefable. And with that, everyone, take care.